I was thinking about the question of, for me, engaging with second-hand clothes is all about morality. So it is about how we think a way in life, a personal, individual way in life, how we incorporate second-hand clothes which might be carrying a stigma of something, as I discovered in Italy, or coming from a Greek background. If you wear clothes that are outside of the family environment, or if you wear clothes that do not come to you through a very close relationship, these clothes are stigmatized as problematic, as clothes that donate destitution, poor people, and second-hand citizenship. And these were questions for me when in 2011, it was the first time in Reggio Calabria, where I worked for 10 years now, where we had the introduction of mercatini dell'usato, that is the markets of the used clothes. And this provoked a lot of reactions in the local population. And if I wanted to think about this conference, and I'm so happy to be here, Efrén, because it gave me the possibility to think about the Scottish environment, where I live now for 5 years, and I'm a very regular charity shopper. I know all the people, the volunteers who work in the charity shops, and I had the possibility to interview them for the purposes of this conference. So I'm taking the scale back down to the individual level, and the audiences that I'm using for this paper are two particular audiences: people who consume second-hand clothes and people who are working as volunteers in the second-hand shops in Scotland, in St. Andrews particularly. So I'm using, I want to address these ideas of donation and class, as these are articulated through second-hand clothes consumption in South Italy and Scotland. I'm using a very historical narrative from colleagues who experienced a very particular market in Italy, which was called Mercatino Americano, the American market. I'm using material that I collected from people who bought their clothes in second-hand markets in Reggio Calabria, and then I moved back to Scotland to people who are working in the charity shops. So I'm thinking that bringing these two European sides into a comparative perspective highlights the manner that European audiences are not equally receptive to embracing second-hand clothes as a part of their identity, appearance, and self-value. So let's go to Reggio Calabria. And 2011, as I said, it was the first year that the locals experienced what it means to have in their local markets second-hand clothes. And this introduction of the second-hand clothes in Reggio Calabria seriously opened history's can of worms. The function of the clothes, it was disorientating, in the sense that the mercatini became a kind of internal critique for the people in Reggio Calabria. They found it through the second-hand clothes. They found the people that I worked with. They found the relevant connected threads to past crises. Okay, and up to that moment, these past crises were kind of dormant. And the mercatini were, if I wanted to borrow from Michael Hirschfeld, the looking glass through which people could critically assess their past and became highly reflexive as to their geopolitical location in global tax of power. So whilst discussing the mercatini, locals would lamentably refer to multiple narratives of overarching domination and dispossession. The surreal picture of used clothes donated to the charities in Northern Europe, and once destined for Africa, opened up the past and present to simultaneous critique. With the imperative need to maintain their bella figura, that is the beautiful appearance, and for people, especially Reggio Calabria and South Italians in general, it is something which goes beyond the physical appearance. It addresses issue of the worthy person who is able to master their own personal narrative and family narrative. So maintaining their appearance through a very extensive wardrobe, it is important for the regini, And after the crisis, salaries were cut, the finances were not as flowing as they used to be, so they had to resort to buying second-hand clothes. And that made them feel like Africani. That was the major argument that was brought forward by these people. And in the need to manage other people's waste. That was the second argument that was brought forward. La spazzatura del Nord, okay? The waste of the garbage of the North. So, as I said, it is very important to maintain this idea of bella figura. And Italian scholars have worked particularly in this idea, what it means. I wouldn't go now into detail, but it is a metaphor which is ever present in Italian life. It captures at once the public and the public appearance and inner disposition of the individual. So another argument that was very important in this particular type of research is that the emergence of the mercatini highlighted the accelerated process of southernization, whereby Southern Europe became even more southern than ever. And people were lamenting that we are wearing the crisis now in our bodies. We become Africani, we move south. Okay, so there was this engagement, conscious engagement with discourses of colonialism in a combination of top-down rhetoric and bottom-up cultural arguments of indignation. So the used clothes prompt historical imagination, local and national narratives of exploitation were invoked, including the asymmetrical power relations between North and South Italy. Again, this big question, what is Italy at the end of it? Is it something, is it a united nation, or it is a nation divided between the rich North and the poor South? And also there was comparisons with the 20th century colonial projects in East Africa. And one argument that was readily made was that Mussolini should have colonized us instead of going to colonize East Africa. And also a lot of references to the 'Ndrangheta, that is the Calabrian mafia, and the hegemony projected to the local populations, because it was rumored, and actually it was not only a rumor, it was a kind of fact, we know now, that the 'Ndrangheta controlled the mercatini. So there was all these questions, and the recent question in my last trip was also the game of the church in this second-hand market in Italy. I was pointed to a kind of warehouse, which was really scary in the sense that it was controlled by the church, and the floor was full of clothes. Okay, so I have to think about how the church is involved into this game as well. But another debate that gave me the impetus to think about more historically about the morality of second-hand clothes in Italy related to this idea of Southern Europe as being exploited politically and economically by the powerful North. And this, through the austerity measures and bailout plans, people were thinking and bringing these two historical moments into comparative with the US global domination since the Marshall Plan. So the Marshall Plan was a historical point of reference when people were thinking about the mercatini dell'usato and their position in this scheme of global taxa in the world. But there is a paradox here, because whereas used clothes markets were not present in Reggio Calabria until the onset of the global financial crisis, other cities in Italy have historically been locations for the trade of used clothes and objects. So adjacent Sicily, we had Mercatino Americano in other parts of Italy, but not in Reggio Calabria. Reggio Calabria was kind of virgin to these markets. So the trade of second-hand clothes in Italy has always thrived and been an integral part of urban economies dating back to medieval and early modern periods. Since the 19th century and the association of the second-hand clothing trade with poverty, these types of markets have attracted much more scholarly interest. In post-Second World War Italy, the need for cheap, affordable clothing is directly associated with the famous mercatini americani that appeared around Italy after the end of the war, an integral part of the Marshall Plan. Okay, functioning not only as possible solutions to the problems of low-income populations, the mercatini americani were endless sources of imagination, alternative aesthetics, and potential to fashion political ideologies. So here I take a historical turn, and I'm working with colleagues who themselves experienced the mercatino americano in different parts of Italy. I'm bringing only one narrative here because it would be too much to talk about all the people, all the colleagues that I interviewed. But she is important to me because this woman gives a very colorful and narrative, and also a narrative, a very sensual narrative, which is important. So Sofia, let's call her Sofia, she was a researcher in Naples in 1978. And that was the first time she came in contact with second-hand clothes in the famous local market of Resina, one of the best-known markets of second-hand clothes in South Italy. The market was founded in 1944 with clothes and objects belonging to the US Army, and in the successive years became an institution for selling and buying second-hand clothes. The market is known for its branded clothes and the variety of people that visit it from within Italy and from abroad. Sofia used to visit the market very often, and she thoroughly enjoyed her time there. She says, "I have images of the market, and I could paint it for you. I remember the colors of the things I bought. Very convenient, very conventional things, not very bright, muted colors. Ah, that beautiful black dress, I still have it." The whole market in Resina was surreal. All these mountains of clothes, not colorful clothes, and those little kids climbing to the top of the 2-meter piles and rampaging around. It was a rubbish tip, but different activities were going on at the same time. There were those big mountains where women and children were picking through the piles, but then you had all the others with a specific eye who had already made the selection. And then you had racks of people where the nice things were displayed, and you did not have to rummage in bags. There was such dust in all these piles, dust and debris, along with the clothes. It was quite surreal in a way. Resina soon became a place where people could come from Rome. You could always tell they were Romans. They were usually lefty people, catering for young feminists and for people who wanted something a bit alternative, a bit different, a bit original, but also maintaining it's a kind of a business. You could tell who they were, men and women, and they would pick up nice pieces, so there was already a sense, I don't know, I felt as if there was already a sense of appropriation. Because the things that were available to all of us were suddenly creamed off by those shops in Rome, and those shops were much more expensive. There was a particular style in Rome. The feminists and the compagnie had a particular style of dress, which was interesting compared to the feminists in Britain, who hadn't developed a particular kind of style. Critique here. Roman style was about knee skirts with nice material, styles and patterns, and very often a silk blouse must have been vintage, and little quite fluffy cardigans, quite colorful. So very feminine, but clearly not bourgeois, the things they sell in Via Condotti in Rome. When I was back in London, a friend of mine came from Rome to visit. She was so pretty, exquisite taste, and she always looked original and fabulous. She used to go to what was then Camden Lock in London, and she had the eye for beautiful things that always suited her. In fact, it was my Italian friends here in London who encouraged me to continue looking for second-hand things and old clothes. When I reflect now, I ended up getting into old clothes. It was largely through these two Italian friends. Although older than me, very chic, very beautiful, with very beautiful hats, definitely worth emulating. When I reflect back, I believe that the appropriation of old clothes was not related to economy. We were all short of money, not my Italian friend though. She was rich, but I was short of money. I was a student at the time. It was linked to a particular aesthetic and politics. My Italian friends do not consider themselves feminists, but they were into this aesthetic mode of being a compagna. My Neapolitan friends, during the time of my fieldwork, were quite poor, looked into clothes and resina and buying them because of necessity, and they could find a bargain. They were not interested in more fanciful dresses. It was not appealing to them. They might buy some stuff for the kids. For me, it was like a pilgrimage to go to the resina market and come back with goodies and trophies. For my friends, the old clothes were related to poverty, the post-war and the ongoing poverty of Naples. That was most striking about resina. All these parallel stories going on. You had these mountains of clothes and children rummaging through the piles, clearly families with very little income, if any. And then you had these people from Rome with enough money and style to buy some of these more desirable clothes, desirable for us. The clothes in resina were coming from Germany, which is slightly creepy and with a question mark. They were wartime and post-war clothes dating in 1950s. So let's go back now to Scotland, because I think that her narrative raises a lot of similar questions with people I interviewed recently for your conference, Efrén. So, as I said, in Scotland, what we do with Daniel is that every Saturday morning we take our stroll. We know all the people working in the charity shops, and we know the items usually displayed and how the item may be in motion. And my question in motion is about a value, but also is about a geographical thing. So it has a dual purpose. In St. Andrews, currently there are only 9 charity shops. 2 have recently closed down due to non-viable rent costs. It is a very expensive place to live. And 1 establishment being bought by an international franchise of food. Yeah. Like a highly trained hound, this is me, I lose myself in the magical world of the charity shop, looking for the next amazing clothes to add in my wardrobe. And one day, a very nice day, 2 elderly excitable ladies vigorously enter the shop screaming, "There it is, there it is!" And I'm baffled. I look at them and they reply, because they saw me, "We came from Dundee to find this top. We saw it last Saturday, but I hesitated buying it as the price was a bit high. But I could not stop thinking about it. Isn't it gorgeous?" She asked me. I replied that it was indeed fantastic and certainly worthy of the £10 return ticket to Dundee, a city 22 kilometers away. In my mind, I do the maths, so she gave £10 for the ticket, 6 was the top, the whole adventure cost her £16, not including a possible coffee or a light lunch, so the top was really expensive. But she and her friend were very happy in finding the desirable top that occupied her mind for a week and made her day. So hosting a very prestigious university, us, founded in 1413, frequented by the likes of Prince William and his wife Kate Middleton, Duchess of Cambridge, and other elite offspring, and the globally famous Royal Ancient Golf Course, St. Andrews is usually mentioned as the pink bubble of Scotland, alluding to its middle-class citizens, wealthy students, and multimillionaire golfers. No doubt, this adds to the prestige of the local charity shops for people from Fife, as well as tourists populate them in their search for desirable objects. Maria, a 52-year-old volunteer in a St. Andrews charity shop, points to some fundamental changes regarding the value of the items on the shop floor. So, regardless of brand or present quality, the ethics of donating, and more particularly the pedagogy of the donor, radically influences what clothes would reach the shop floor. Garments that are dirty, ripped, even missing buttons will eventually be packed up and collected for 55p per kilo by CV Rags, a company in Glasgow claiming its commitment to recycling, but for personal profit. And I think this is it. No storage washing and drying facilities on the site of the charity shop also point to large quantities seeing their way to CV Rags. Maria argues that it's actually more convenient to give the excess clothes to them as the local council charges for waste disposal. Regardless that each charity shop has concrete direction from their headquarters regarding regarding the value of the items, she unavoidably admits that the value of the garment is more of a matter of chance and less a systemic approach, because people who are working as volunteers in the charity shops, they are not trained to recognize the brand and therefore to make a selection for the charity shop. Items that are not sold after 2 weeks of display are circulated to other charity shops in the region. Due to the working class demographics, items that move on to Dundee or Coupar or poorer area charity shops eventually go for a lower price. Then you have the value change. At the same time, items that enter St. Andrew's charity shops are priced higher as people believe and expect to find more expensive and quality clothes there. She says, Maria, wealthy people know exactly what they're looking for. They go straight to pieces of quality. They spot them mile off. They're usually focused and polite. Noticing faults is an easy way to get a discount. I would never think to get a discount in a charity shop, but apparently I've experienced that. They do ask for a discount. Very often they buy clothes and expensive ornaments for their own shops, okay? Vintage shops that resell for extortionate prices. I laugh a lot with the confusion among US, Japanese, and European tourists who don't know what the difference is between charities and normal shops. They ask, do you have this in my size, please? No. So let's go back to London now through another narrative. Throughout the 1850s and early 1860s, Karl Marx, of all people, was in London conducting research to write Capital and Other Projects. He and his family lived on the threshold of poverty, and the only sources of income were Marx's journalism, Engels' generosity, and other relative support. The family's precarious economic life was characterized by endless journeys to the pawn shop, where Jenny Marx repeatedly pawned her own clothes, their daughter's clothes, and Marx's own coat. A second-hand dealer might have been ashamed, but the Marxes could not afford to be. Their broken down furniture, the pots and pans, the cutlery and other clothes had exchange value, and they knew just what that value was, since item after item of their belongings traveled to and from the pawn shop. That was an accurate quotation from Stanley Brass's paper. Relations with the pawnbroker were structurally antagonistic, as they were fundamentally different conceptualizations of the value of the pawned clothes. At the pawn shop, the double life of things appeared in its most contradictory form, for it was the value of things that shifted constantly from exchange to sentimental value and vice versa. From this perspective of the pawn shop, the clothes had to be stripped of memories and personal history in order to acquire exchange value. From the perspective of the people who pawned their clothes, the items were often repositories of memory. Time after time, his material circumstances drove Marx to the pawn shop with the prized possession of his household, where these were emptied of the memories, possibilities, and respectability that they in all their particularity subsumed for his family. Like the shop where Marx pawned his coat, it is in the second-hand clothes markets and charity shops where a series of transformations of value are taking place. These transformations are directly related to larger categories of inclusion and exclusion, politics, aesthetics, and relatedness that at times seem to shift and defy the monetary value of the clothes at the time of purchase. In Resina, Sophia notices an a priori appropriation and different evaluation of clothes that is directly related to class and financial income. It is the poorest strata of Naples that seem unbothered by aesthetics and alternative styles. For them, used clothes are a double sword, a necessity and a reminder of poverty. Despite the fact that the second-hand clothes trade was very successful, at least as far back as the 18th century, in Europe second-hand clothing indicated conditions of financial ruin and thus were frequently viewed as a symbol of poverty and lower-class oppression and patronage. During the 1960s and 70s, only eccentrics, students, and hippies openly admitted to wearing second-hand clothes, signaling their rejection of an ideological system associated with ever-increasing consumerism, capitalism, and the global domination of the United States. Sophia, as well as Maria, point to the moral appropriation of the category of vintage, where the second-hand clothes destined to different, maybe middle-class consumers are invested with memories, aesthetics, and the historic narrative of a generation that may be long dead. Second-hand clothes were, on the one hand, purchased by revolutionaries, feminists, and people aligned to the political left, and on the other, by entrepreneurs intending to sell them at inflated prices in swanky Roman boutiques or in their own shops in St. Andrews. Appropriating the clothes would then mean appropriating particular political and historical narratives. And here is my question: how do we ever merge the narrative which will be more successful to engage or entice people to buy into using second-hand clothes? For Sophia, the clothes signify the trophy, a treasure to be found that ignites imagination. Under the pile of non-interesting, incongruous clothes remained hidden only to be discovered by those competent to find it. Treasure items are findables, things that are lying awaiting to be discovered by those possessing the right skill and the right eye. Stories of hidden and discovered treasure are tales of personal struggle and enrichment or misfortune. Hence, treasure hunting is not about getting rich in a sense of monetary value, but it is about uncovering the wider values of the history and culture of the period. It is a further expressed discomfort with a political system of consumption associated with capitalism. As a youngster, Maria never frequented charity shops in Britain as they were a quote, for poor people, dirty and smelly. But since she became a volunteer 6 years ago, she drastically changed her mind about value, donation, and class identification. As I have pointed out elsewhere, since 2011, charity shops in Britain are no longer the domain of the working classes, and more wealthy people enter the game. Popularized by fashion icons such as Kate Moss and Alexa Chung, charity shops managed to cast off connotations of poverty and destitution and successfully combine donation with intrigue and imagination and the meta-language for offering one's own identity regardless of class and economic status. And this is an argument that you make as well about the Indian situation. In terms of value, the donated often branded second-hand clothes that end up in the markets of Reggio Calabria and other second-hand clothes in markets in South and Central Italy were treasure before being donated to a charity as trash. In 1998, the European Union advocated policy on waste disposal, including the category of second-hand clothing, and this is from Karen. With such astonishing top-down categorizing of second-hand clothing as waste, the ongoing association with second-hand clothes and the second-hand citizen in places like Reggio Calabria should come as no surprise. Whether the southern Italian public of all classes will eventually openly embrace second-hand clothes as part of their appearance depends, I think, on whether the value currently indicating a rubbish person will shift in a form of waste management. Whether people can shift trust to treasure and openly incorporate second-hand clothes into their lives depends on successfully reworking variants of value that politically do not debase citizenship and class. And that's the end. Only to say that in Reggio Calabria, people who engage in buying second-hand clothes, they do it in secret. So other people do not know that what they're wearing is a second-hand cloth. This entails that they move to different neighborhoods so that they're not being recognized. The other argument is that it is only what they call in Reggio Calabria extracomunitari people who are not European, the EU citizens who engage in buying second-hand clothes. So there is also this internal classification of who is buying the second-hand clothes in Reggio Calabria. And I don't see it changing quite fast. Even though people are conscious about recycling and they embrace recycling quite vigorously, there is a huge problem with second-hand clothes, openly to admit that what I'm wearing is a second-hand top from Salvation Army. Thank you. No problem.
I think there are just so many issues that touch on the work that we did earlier that actually I think it's just fascinating. So I suppose what just came into my mind was other things that I've been looking at is just this relationship, really quick question, when people are buying clothes in southern Italy, this idea that you go somewhere else, you don't say that you go. I mean, in India what I found a really classic thing is that again, people wouldn't buy second-hand clothing. Indian clothing, but they could buy Western 42nd clothing and pretend that it was a hand-me-down because it also then showed that you had been bought and that you had spent time in different cultures where you could wear a different kind of clothing.
Yeah.
I was just interested about when you said this thing about Germany, it keeps coming up. The clothes came from Germany.
Yeah, and Holland.
And Holland. So
Yeah.
what relationship would then have to the clothes that were made in Italy, this whole made in Italy? Because when I was talking to these recycling factories in Calcio, they were desperate to hide the fact that they were recycling because they still feel that they are considered to be lower. They were set up looking after the Marshall Plan too, and they were recycling uniforms and stuff, and they always see themselves as being lower than the new material manufacturers in Florence. So what they were trying to do was create materials that had that made in Italy brand, so that the designs, the colours, the checks and everything else, they would secretly go to French fashion shows and take the bits of material and bring it back and try to recreate it and give it Italian feel without going as So was there a sort of a role for used Italian clothing from the north that was seen as very classic and very stylish and very Italian, or was it, what was happening with the fact that it was all imported from Germany? Do you think there would be a difference in what people really wouldn't buy, say that they would buy or could pass off as being inherited?
People in Reggio Calabria, they're very proud of their Italian fashion. I was feeling like a tramp there. I mean, they're super made of when they go out, and the appearance is extraordinary. So it would take a lot for the people that I interviewed. There were, if you like, three different categories of people: people who needed the second-hand clothes, people who were middle upper class could afford the left argument. So for them, it was more going back to the second-hand clothes, buying something with an Italian brand, being proud that they found it in €1, okay, and being able then to project their objection to this occupation that it is discussed a lot now in Italy. Italian brands are sought after like crazy. So if they find something which has the bigger brands, the bigger Italian brands, or even kind of lower type of thing, this is highly sought after. But they are not in the position to know, and I'm not in the position to know. I know that they come from Holland and Germany, but I don't know whether there is a circulation from Italy to Holland, Germany, and then come back to Italy, because these clothes were destined to Africa. And because Drangheta controls the market, they bring them back to Reggio Calabria. And it is here we have a lot of connection with what Karen was saying about the family structure of controlling the market. So I'm not in the position to know the full motion of these things, of these items. But definitely as Italian brands, they are sought after highly. Because people would then say, oh yes, this is Versace. It's, you don't know whether I bought it for 200 pounds or euros, or I bought it €1. And I had one person, okay, that was not Versace, it was Dior, and he was very proud of his tie because the tie was Dior, £1. So, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucile. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, I can't hug everybody. Send you all a massive hug.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. And enjoy the rest of the day.
Bye, Lucy. Ciao, ciao. Bye, bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Stavros. I think it's great that you are taking us into a discussion about the kinds of meanings, changing meanings over place and time that people attribute to second-hand clothing in this kind of comparison. But my question is a rather minor one, and you kind of talked to it right there now. What I was curious about was this statement you made that these clothes were destined for Africa. So you're saying in the early 70s, importation of used clothing used to reach Reggio Calabria. What evidence is there that these bales that came down or whatever came down was en route to Africa? Or is this people's construction of what is landing there with them?
It is the people's construction. They believe that because the people that I worked with, they are very suspicious of all these humanitarian projects that are and development projects that are going on in Africa, and also because of the particular position of Reggio Calabria, and they've been the southern of the south.
Yes.
It is a more of an internal discourse about where Reggio Calabria is located, and the fact that they know that these clothes are destined for Africa. This is what the media feeds them, and this is what they have information from people who are working in the markets. So I was feeding this information through the people who are buying the clothes. They feel that it is their personal idea that these clothes are destined to go to Africa. But still, because mafia has the possibility to intercept the motion, they bring these clothes to Reggio Calabria. So whether we engage with the market is also a question of engaging or not with the 'ndrangheta, the mafia that is.
Okay.
What can you say regarding that? Because part of the sorting that we've done in the UK or probably in the Netherlands or the same is a way as well to find the cream, the very best quality, and this cream usually is still in Europe, and some of them are mostly going to Eastern European countries, so it's very possible that part of those cream is going back in Italy, and that there is a kind of broader process of bringing large quantity of Italian clothes to those sorting facilities and then bringing back only a very tiny percentage
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the highest
Yeah.
quality. So that might be an explanation.
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah.
this kind of strange
Yeah.
clothes. I had another question, just because you mentioned that this wasn't the main focus of your research, all those very interesting data on second-hand clothes, but then you kind of prepared them in order to engage in this conference. But I was wondering if you are able to make some connection between this topic and the broader research you are doing there, and some kind of links between them.
the broader search, say that again, Martin?
Between all you described today, the second clauses and the
Yeah.
broader focus of your
Yes.
research in Calab.
Yeah. This is the fact that I say this is not my main focus is because in Britain, if you don't have funding to work on a project, this is not considered the main focus. But actually for me, since 2011, I always go back and forth to this topic. It is one of my constant occupation. However, the fact that I'm working 10 years now in Reggio Calabria gives me the opportunity to make the links, as you said, because it is exactly through this 10-year experience in Reggio Calabria that I was able to see the connection between the global south and global north, and also to see, to be able to think of the comparatives within Italy, and how people in Reggio Calabria, they're not receptive to openly admit the second-hand cloth experience, because historically Reggio Calabria was never a mercatino americano. Whilst, for instance, in Resina or in Rome or in Naples, they experienced these markets. People, the people that the colleagues that I worked with through this historical narrative of mercatino americano, they didn't have a problem to admit openly that they were experiencing, they were wearing the second-hand cloth in their bodies. So it takes a lot. That's why I'm a bit skeptical about how successfully we'll incorporate the individual narrative of morality within these big scales that you all addressed in your talks. And I'm not sure that this will happen quite fast. From my experience in Italy, the mercatino americano, we experienced that after the 1940s, and it takes a lot of time to engage with an experience that goes against other fundamental values of what it means to be an Italian citizen, to wear their money, which costs maybe I don't know how, or to where I experienced the women, my informants, when I was working for the minority project, my friends, when we were going out, they were buying jeans, 300 euros, and they were people with a very middle income. So for them to go back and admit openly that what I'm wearing is a second-hand trousers does not go well with the narrative that they have about being in the world.
May I add one question?
Yes,
to that?
absolutely.
Please, Stavrola, you speak about the people in Vidéo Calabria. I was wondering whether there might perhaps not be different reactions depending on generation, and whether young people, let's say below 25, would not engage with this in a different manner than adults, say in their 40s and 50s, who have experienced a different world. Because we certainly see that in lots of other places, that young people experiment and play with these genres.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I worked with young people too, and at least the people that I worked with, they were a bit reluctant to engage, because the narrative of who you are in Reggio Calabria goes directly of who your family is. So I don't have much possibility as a family member to express my own individuality. I always express this individuality according to what my family is. And that goes from, you can see it from Drangheta to civil associations to everything. This does not say that people do not own themselves, okay? But up to a point. There always has to be negotiation of who I am in relation to who my family is. They go usually with, I haven't seen young people finding clothes themselves. Usually they are the women of the family who find the clothes for everybody in the family.
For young adults, so say
Yeah.
18, 19, 20.
No, no. And even if the pictures, if I want to spot young people in all the material that I have collected, and historically in Italy, in Reggio Calabria, it is the woman who goes out and buys for the family. Young people do go out, but they go out in expensive shops and in Via Marina and Via Garibaldi, where all the high fashion shops are. And because this adds to the idea of bella figura. You're making a cattiva figura, a bad appearance, when you are seen in these markets. And there are people in Reggio Calabria even now who are unaware that you have the second-hand clothes markets after all these years. So it is not an easy thing. I mean, it will take time. Which is paradoxical because the people, locals, have embraced recycling quite openly and vigorously. Thank you.
Bonjour, je suis désolée d'être pas venue hier ni ce matin, c'est parce que maintenant je travaille dans les légumes et pas dans les fripes. Du coup ça a des conflits d'emploi du temps, légèrement. Et comme tu as parlé beaucoup des systèmes mafieux, etc. et de toute la dimension européenne, on va juste traverser et passer côté tunisien. Je vais essayer, on fait une présentation à deux avec Stephanos, plus ou moins, enfin des présentations qui sont jumelles puisqu'on a travaillé ensemble. Et je vais essayer de vous présenter rapidement, de manière assez claire, j'espère, comment se structure, comment a évolué et comment se structure plus ou moins le commerce de la fripe en Tunisie. Après, je me concentrerai à Tunis, puisque la présentation s'intitule, grâce à Efrén, la crème, la galère et le fric, ou dans un autre ordre, lieux et gens de la fripe à Tunis. Du coup, je vais d'abord parler en général de la Tunisie, puis après me concentrer un petit peu sur la capitale tunisienne, où on a mené 2 terrains d'enquête du coup conjointement avec Stephanos en 2014 et 2015. Et pour vous expliquer un peu comment je suis arrivée dans la fripe, parce qu'à la base je ne travaillais pas du tout sur la fripe, mais surtout sur la migration de travail entre l'Égypte et les pays du Golfe. La fripe en Tunisie, a priori, c'était pas trop mon truc. C'est que, cherchant désespérément un postdoc, j'avais répondu à un appel d'offres au MUSEM qui avait sélectionné un projet de recherche pour travailler sur les quartiers où se vendait la fripe au Caire, et donc en Égypte. Et ils m'ont du coup embauché en me disant « Non, mais tu ne vas pas travailler en Égypte, tu vas travailler à Tunis, enfin, en Tunisie. » Comme j'étais là, d'accord, ok, je parle arabe, mais pas vraiment tunisien, et Tunisie, je n'y connais rien. Et du coup, j'ai d'abord débarqué en Tunisie toute seule, puis rejointe par Stephanos. Et là, c'est assez impressionnant. La Tunisie, pour vous donner une idée générale, je ne suis pas très forte en chiffres et j'ai aucun tableau, rien du tout. Mais en 2013, les derniers chiffres que j'avais réunis, elle importe de manière déclarée environ 2000 à 5000 tonnes de fripe par an. C'est pas énorme à l'échelle du marché global de la fripe, pour environ 110 millions de dinars tunisiens, si vous coupez par 2, du coup 55 millions d'euros environ. Donc c'est pas un gros centre du commerce de fripe à l'échelle mondiale. À l'échelle méditerranéenne, c'est important, et pourtant à l'échelle de la Tunisie et du Maghreb, c'est vraiment énorme. C'est le principal lieu d'import et d'export, d'import, de tri, d'export et de valorisation des fripes occidentales sur le bassin méditerranéen. Et ça, j'en avais aucune idée quand j'ai débarqué à Tunis en 2014, rejointe après par Stephanos. Et ce qui est assez impressionnant et ce qui est intéressant, c'est ce sur quoi je vais me concentrer, c'est que à la base, je voulais utiliser la fripe pour étudier en Égypte des inégalités spatiales et un rapport assez contentieux à l'État, donc au Caire en l'occurrence. Et je me suis retrouvée à Tunis à découvrir qu'à travers la fripe, on avait une porte d'entrée vers toute l'histoire politique et les inégalités qui sont structurelles de la société tunisienne depuis assez longtemps en fait. Donc inégalités structurelles, en gros, les inégalités régionales, les inégalités de genre, les inégalités de classe, les rapports, les inégalités urbaines aussi, tout peut se donner à voir à travers la fripe. Et ça m'a aussi permis, donc je parlais de politique, d'histoire politique, de beaucoup mieux comprendre une dimension qui a été un peu valorisée depuis la Révolution en Tunisie, mais finalement assez peu mise en valeur, tout le rapport entre économie et politique dans ce pays, c'est-à-dire comment se structure l'économie tunisienne et quel était son rapport au régime de Ben Ali, et après la Révolution, qu'est-ce qui s'est passé. Du coup, en fait, à partir des fripes qui ressemblaient à un objet très trivial, on a eu une sorte de porte d'entrée privilégiée vers la société tunisienne dans toute sa complexité. Alors c'est un petit peu compliqué de vous parler de tout ça, puis en plus ça restait assez exploratoire. On a fait que 2 terrains, financement et disons, impératif, muséo oblige. On n'a pas pu rester sur le terrain aussi longtemps qu'on l'aurait souhaité. Mais bon, pour vous donner un peu, je rentre dans le vif du sujet. En gros, l'histoire des fripes en Tunisie est très liée à l'Italie. Ça nous permet de faire le pont. Parce que, comme l'Italie et la Tunisie se font face, depuis les années 50-60, il y a des imports du commerce de valises à l'origine qui se faisaient avec le port de la Villette. Le port de la Villette à Tunis, maintenant qui est plus un port touristique qu'un port commercial. Mais ça se faisait donc, je disais, un commerce à la valise, et ça s'est très progressivement, des années 60 jusqu'à aujourd'hui, professionnalisé, industrialisé et globalisé. Et ce qui est intéressant quand on discute avec à peu tous les gens, à toutes les échelles qui travaillent la fripe, du coup du vendeur ambulant à l'acheteur, au fripier, au grossiste, c'est que tout le monde marque à peu près il y a un moment charnière qui est à peu près concomitant de l'accession au pouvoir de Ben Ali à la fin des années 80. Et du coup, le passage de l'accession au pouvoir de Ben Ali, c'est aussi la fin du protectionnisme, et c'est le début de la mise en place de politiques libérales. Et du coup, l'entrée de la Tunisie dans le marché global se fait un peu par le fric. Donc du commerce à la valise, on passe à une structuration de l'import en passant par, en gros à la base, c'est essentiellement des habits italiens, toujours, hein, on conserve les mêmes réseaux, qui partent beaucoup de Naples. Et puis, comme en Italie, il y a énormément de concurrence, comme il y a énormément de gens il y a déjà un business de la fripe qui est interne à l'Italie, comme la demande en Tunisie croît avec la baisse du pouvoir d'achat des Tunisiens, et que les possibilités de réexport légal ou illégal se développent également au début des années 90, à l'échelle surtout du Maghreb d'abord, puis de toute l'Afrique. Il y a une diversification aussi des pays de provenance. Ce qui est intéressant, c'est que l'Italie reste la charnière, c'est-à-dire qu'en gros maintenant à Tunis on trouve énormément de fripes qui viennent du Canada, de l'Amérique du Nord, d'Australie même, d'Allemagne, d'Angleterre, une quête en fait permanente et constante de davantage de qualité, de marque, une sorte de course vers le plus au nord possible comme pays de provenance. Et par contre l'Italie reste le port, enfin la zone de transit des conteneurs, parce que tu parlais de l'implication de l'État dans les réseaux. Moi, ce que j'ai entendu du côté tunisien et ce que j'ai pu voir dans une usine, c'est plutôt la Camorra, en fait, du côté napolitain, qui sert d'intermédiaire à l'export vers Tunis. Alors, donc, on a une industrialisation, une globalisation du business. Concrètement, quand on arrive en 2014, ça veut dire que quand vous arrivez, il y a de la fripe partout, avec une amplitude, une intermédiation assez incroyable. Du coup, vous avez les vendeurs ambulants, les marchés de fripe. Donc, chaque quartier a son marché de fripe. Il y a des marchés de fripe fixes, il y a des marchés de fripe qui tournent. Il y a des usines d'import qui sont plus ou moins grosses. Et il n'y en a que 46 qui ont reçu un agrément. Ces usines d'import fonctionnaient comme en gros sous Ben Ali. L'import de fripe était directement traité par ce qu'on appelle la partie, donc par la belle famille de Ben Ali, par les frères de Leila, sa femme, dont l'un d'entre eux était en gros faciliter l'import, donc on n'avait pas vraiment de douane à payer, mais juste plutôt des pots de vin à reverser directement aux intermédiaires de la fabricerie. Ce qui se passe depuis la Révolution, c'est qu'il y a une désorganisation de ce système assez clair finalement au lieu de payer la douane, l'État étant confondu avec la belle famille du dictateur, c'est assez simple. Après la chute de la dictature, toutes les grands notables qui tiennent, les grandes familles qui tiennent l'économie tunisienne depuis très longtemps, se tirent un peu la bourre pour essayer de contrôler le business, et avec des projets de loi qui s'enchaînent. Donc depuis un an, le gouvernement tunisien actuel essaye de faire passer une loi qui contrôlerait le marché de l'Afrique en taxant l'import. Et depuis un an, les fripiers, et particulièrement les grossistes, luttent contre. Et depuis un an, le projet reste un projet, il ne marche pas avec le passé. Et donc ça, ce qui est intéressant, c'est que, bon, on va rentrer dans le vif du sujet. Ce qui m'a trouvé passionnant en Tunisie, c'était cette espèce de savant mélange entre nous. On a des gros businessmen qui sont très très proches de l'État, et en même temps, tout le business et son côté florissant ne repose que sur la contrebande. Sans contrebande, point de salut et point de business en Tunisie. Je vais vous expliquer un peu comment ça fonctionne. Du coup, pourquoi est-ce que l'Afrique s'est globalisée à l'échelle tunisienne d'abord? C'est parce que au début des années 90, puis de nouveau en 2001, puis de nouveau en 2011, l'État algérien, le voisin, l'agent algérien du pouvoir, a décidé d'interdire l'import de fric. Ce qui se passe, c'est qu'en Algérie comme en Tunisie, à partir des années 90, beaucoup d'entreprises de confection occidentale délocalisent et viennent s'installer là-bas parce que le coût de la main-d'œuvre est très faible. Et dans un souci donc un développement du secteur textile neuf, à côté des grandes entreprises occidentales, on a des entreprises tunisiennes qui essayent de faire les mêmes produits mais un peu moins chers pour le marché local, et un État plus ou moins protectionniste qui dit ok, on va protéger la production nationale, pas les salaires ni les coûts du travail, mais la production nationale. Et du coup, avec un système plus ou moins protectionniste, des quotas d'importation des fruits, meilleure qualité, se vendent moins cher que la confection nationale, on va du coup essayer de réglementer la chose. Alors ça ne marche pas du tout. Comme ça ne marche pas du tout, la jambe algérienne décide carrément d'interdire l'import de fric au grand bonheur des Tunisiens. À chaque moment où on a une interdiction, un moratoire sur l'import de fric en Algérie, l'import de fric en Tunisie décuple, parce que on se retrouve avec un système assez passionnant, c'est 46 usines d'import importent avec obligation de ne revendre que, en théorie, 30% sur le sol national. Donc elles importent de l'Afrique non triée, le tri, elles organisent le tri dans les usines, et une fois triée, l'Afrique est censée être réexportée. Ça, c'est tout le corps du business. L'idée, c'est ça, que la Tunisie ne soit qu'un noyau dans un système global. Alors, c'est très louable, mais en général, c'est plutôt 80% qui sont vendus sur le sol national. Donc, dès le départ, on a 50% de fric qui est l'objet d'une sorte de contrebande à l'échelle locale. Puisque massivement, aucun des importateurs ne respecte les quotas imposés par la loi, censés être mis en œuvre à l'intérieur des usines par les douaniers qui sont embarqués dans les usines. On a rencontré un de ces douaniers qui était extrêmement tatillon avec les photographes, mais très très peu avec les quotas à respecter. Donc on a un mot en arabe tunisien pour dire toucher un bac chiffre, c'est casquer, et lui il casquait grave, mais il le disait pas. Et du coup, dans chaque usine, on a un douanier qui sert de façade de l'égalité, mais ne fait pas respecter les quotas, ce qui fait qu'on se retrouve avec les 3/4 de l'Afrique qui inondent les marchés tunisiens et les quartiers de Tunis et d'ailleurs, qui sont vendus de manière illégale. Donc, ce qui fait dire à un sonographiste avec lequel on a travaillé à Tunis, qui m'expliquait, il me dit ah ouais, tu veux travailler sur le business et tu comprends quelque chose, la compra, donc la contrebande, ici c'est un système d'État. Et on se retrouve donc avec à peu près, je vous disais, au lieu de respecter un quota de 30% de revente locale, à peu près 80% de revente locale, avec des gradations de qualité. Ce qui est assez impressionnant en Tunisie, mais qui est à peu près le cas partout ailleurs où l'Afrique se vend, c'est à quel point le tri se spécialise. Plus le business devient juteux, plus le tri va se spécialiser. On a une catégorisation qui va de manière exponentielle. La première année, on était là, le top du top, c'est-à-dire l'Afrique plutôt d'origine américaine, plutôt de bons tissus, donc du jean, bonnes chaussures, plutôt de marque, mais pas que la marque. Il faut qu'il y ait le tissu, la marque, la coupe, la mode et l'origine, s'appelait crème. Ça, c'était la crème. Et en 2016, c'est devenu la super crème. Nous, on a la super crème, puis crème, on a une sorte de catégorisation qui va de manière croissante vers toujours plus de spécialisation sur plus de qualité. Parce que le prix à la revente change énormément. que les 3/4 des choix que le marché tunisien est extrêmement juteux parce que les Tunisiens ne veulent que de la crème ou de la super crème, voire maximum de la première catégorie. Vers l'Algérie par la seconde et la troisième catégorie, et ce qu'on appelle le chiffon ou la poubelle part plutôt vers l'Inde et le Pakistan, ou un peu plus loin en Afrique. En ce moment, il y a la Guinée qui récupère de la troisième catégorie et du chiffon, pas de la poubelle. La poubelle, ça reste quand même un peu pour les Indiens. Et ce qui est aussi intéressant après cette géographie à l'échelle du pays, puis à l'échelle un peu plus globale, c'est de voir à quel point le business de l'Afrique permet de saisir aussi des inégalités globales entre les différents pays et d'imaginer comment est-ce qu'on se représente la consommation dans ce pays à l'échelle tunisienne. Et ça marche aussi à l'échelle juste intra-tunisienne. Quand les Tunisois te parlent de ce qu'achètent comme fric les gens du Sud, ils diront ouais, non, mais la catégorie ça va, mais nous, ça va. Eux, ils peuvent se comporter pour une catégorie. Nous, on veut de la super crème. Donc, ce système d'État basé sur la contrebande commence déjà en Tunisie. Après quoi, il se dirige vers l'Algérie de manière préférentielle. C'est le principal débouché. Donc, plus vous fermez les frontières, plus les contrebandiers vont gagner d'argent. C'est un truc que les États n'ont pas encore vraiment compris. Et le truc qui est intéressant en fait avec la contrebande, c'est l'International Crisis Group qui avait sorti un rapport en 2014 sur la contrebande en Tunisie, qui dit en fait sans la contrebande, l'économie s'effondre. Et c'était un fonctionnaire des douanes, j'ai la citation quelque part, je ne sais pas si j'arrive à la retrouver, qui disait qu'en gros la contrebande est indispensable à la survie de l'État tunisien, puisqu'elle emploie les 3/4 de la population. Et or, ça, en ce moment, il y a un moment dramatique à l'échelle de l'Afrique, mais à l'échelle du pays, c'est que la volonté, je l'ai raconté tout à l'heure, de recontrôler le business, et du coup, il y a le fait que les grandes familles se tirent la bourre d'un côté, essayent de réglementer, donc de taxer l'import, d'interdire l'import de marchandises non triées, ce qui voudrait dire la mort des usines de tri, qui voudrait dire un ou deux importateurs pourraient se permettre de supporter les coûts d'import de marchandises déjà triées en Europe. Ce qui voudrait vraiment, oui, alors, pour le coup, on peut contrôler, qu'il n'y en a que 2 qui importent par rapport à 46, ça devient quand même vachement plus simple. Ça veut dire un licenciement massif de tous les ouvriers de cette usine, plus la ruine de quand même pas mal d'entrepreneurs plutôt florissants. Ça peut poser quelques petits problèmes en termes d'émeutes urbaines, mais ça c'est pour voir. C'est pourquoi la loi n'a toujours pas été passée, donc vous avez ça d'un côté, cette volonté de contrôle, et de l'autre, une urgence frontalière à la frontière à la fois libyenne, libo-tunisienne et algéro-tunisienne. Le fait que Daesh remonte par le sud fait qu'on a un déploiement militaire de plus en plus dense, particulièrement au sud de la Tunisie, à la frontière algéro-tunisienne, et ça pose d'énormes problèmes pour les contrebandiers, puisqu'il y a de plus en plus de contrôle. Bon, après, un militaire, c'est quand même un douanier, c'est un peu trop long, donc ça nécessite une question et une importance. Du coup, l'Afrique est à la fois indispensable à l'économie tunisoise, et elle est aussi une porte d'entrée pour comprendre toutes les connexions avec l'Europe, tous les rapports de force qui jouent en fait à l'échelle globale et à l'échelle nationale, mais elle est aussi en danger. Et ce qui est intéressant, c'est qu'on est en permanence avec ce type de business on confond en permanence le formel et l'informel. Ça permet de comprendre la vacuité de cette différenciation qui est portée pourtant par tant de chercheurs en sciences sociales. Ça n'a pas vraiment sens. On peut décider de catégoriser en fait, entre le formel et l'informel. En tout cas, pour l'Afrique, tout s'interprète tellement. À partir du moment où la contrebande est un système d'État, où l'État encourage la contrebande pour éviter d'avoir des émeutes, où la contrebande devient le seul moyen en fait, d'emploi de toute une population, un des seuls, un des principaux, disons, quel est l'intérêt de différencier entre le formel et l'informel? Et donc ça c'est intéressant, ça permet de questionner des catégorisations utilisées dans l'anthropologie économique et du sens de la France. Et d'autre part, de comprendre aussi comment dire, qu'on peut photographier à un moment donné, mais que ça change en permanence, une sorte de fluctuation permanente et de reconfiguration permanente des flux qui est obligé les anthropologues à retourner en permanence sur le terrain. Ce qui n'est pas forcément toujours le cas, du coup je ne pourrais vous parler je ne vous parle que de 2014 et 2015, ma présentation est déjà fort élevée. Mais bon, tout ça, donc ça c'est un peu une sorte d'aperçu très rapide du business. Ce qui est particulièrement intéressant et le plus intéressant en fait, c'est ce qu'on a essayé de vendre au Musem, mais ça a été très difficile. Je ne sais pas si vous êtes allé voir l'exposition sur les ordures. J'ai énormément de critiques contre cette exposition, beaucoup. Mais bon, on a quand même réussi, c'est quand même d'avoir montré ce qu'on a essayé de faire, ce qu'on a réussi à faire avec le financement d'enseignants. C'était à quoi ça sert de parler de business, quel est l'intérêt finalement d'une cartographie d'un business tel que celui de l'Afrique, si c'est pas pour parler des gens qui la travaillent et de comment ils la travaillent, de s'interroger en fait sur comment ça se structure dans un système d'inégalité globale. Pour moi, si on parle de globalisation du business, ça n'a d'intérêt que si on parle des rapports sociaux qui l'engendrent. Et du coup, on a essayé de se concentrer sur la capitale, sur Tunis, et essayer de suivre les différentes étapes de l'intermédiation. Essayer de comprendre en fait quelles étaient les conditions de travail et les rêves des gens qui travaillent l'Afrique et qui s'habitent de fric en Tunisie. Et là, je fais une petite citation en fait, qui revient quand même très souvent quand on travaille avec Tunis et qui est intéressant pour travailler un autre concept endémique dans les sciences sociales. C'est pour ça que je ne sais jamais vraiment ce que ça veut dire, en gros, parce que ça ne veut pas dire en général, on ne sait jamais trop quoi venir derrière. Et ce qui est intéressant avec les gens qui travaillent l'Afrique, c'est qu'ils travaillent une matière qui est éminemment globalisée, qui convoque aussi des imaginaires qui sont éminemment globalisés, tout en étant bloqués en Tunisie. Ça, c'est un des aspects de quand on travaille là-bas. Les Tunisiens bougent peut-être autant que les Marocains ou les Algériens, le pays est beaucoup plus petit. Et très régulièrement, en tout cas en travaillant particulièrement avec les jeunes hommes et les jeunes femmes qui travaillent à l'Afrique, on se retrouve avec ce sentiment d'enfermement. On travaille des marchandises qui bougent et nous on est bloqués. Des sentiments de blocage. Donc on a voulu travailler cette inégalité entre circulation des marchandises et blocage des frontières pour la circulation humaine. Et du coup de s'interroger sur comment était vécue l'Afrique et comment ça a été travaillé. Alors, on a travaillé dans une usine, une usine d'accord, une syntaxe qui a été créée en 1998 avec une association, un partenaire tunisien et un partenaire hollandais. Le premier partenaire tunisien est parti avec la classe en 2002 et a été remplacé par son frère, qui n'arrivant pas à gérer, a fait appel à deux jeunes loups qui avaient suivi qui ont étudié chacun un master de commercialisation canadien. Du coup, les choses se reconfigurent aussi beaucoup plus avec le Canada actuellement. Du coup, on a pu suivre les évolutions sur 2 ans et demi de cette usine électrique dans l'usine, qui emploie à peu près 200 personnes, toutes sans contrat, aucune contrat. Et les femmes, si je fais une moyenne, une ouvrière trieuse gagne 13 dinars par jour, ça fait 6,50 €, et un homme qui ne soit pas contrôlable, donc un ouvrier, gagne 16 dinars par jour, à peu près. Et ce qui nous a intéressé, c'était, on se demandait comment est-ce qu'on arrive à rendre compte du rapport à la matière, de ce que ça peut générer. Donc il y avait à la fois toute la dimension ethnographique sur les conditions de travail, sur le contrôle des corps, sur toutes les manières que mettent en œuvre les ouvriers pour essayer de contrôler ce contrôle. Quand je parle de contrôle, c'est très bien, on est rentré dans l'usine, on vous tamponne jusqu'au sous-vêtement. Les ouvrières, c'est le rituel d'entrée, se font tamponner chaque couche pour être sûr qu'elles ne vont pas repartir avec des frics sur elles, mettre leur portable dans une boîte qui récupère à la sortie. Les ouvriers, pareil, tout est tamponné. Ça n'empêche que ça va quand même à récupérer quelques pièces pour eux. Et puis c'est une sorte de balai, de cri, comme ça. Permanence, toujours le même geste, toujours avec une catégorisation, comme je vous dis, qui se développe de plus en plus, une spécialisation des ouvrières pour l'avant. Et l'essentiel des produits de cette usine est revendu sur le marché tunisien. On a retrouvé chez les grossistes. Après, bon, ce qui est intéressant aussi, si on parle c'est vraiment en banlieue nord de Tunis qu'on a travaillé. Et c'est comme je vous montrera, je ne vais pas rentrer dans les détails de l'histoire du à l'usine arrivent les fringues, sont triées, mises en balle, revendues aux grossistes, qui les revendent à des marchands, soit ambulants, soit fixes. Et on a donc travaillé au marché mercantile avec des vendeurs fixes qui ont investi de manière illégale les inventaires autour d'un marché aux légumes, qui sont en guerre permanente avec la mairie, qui essaye de leur soutirer des taxes, qui, après la Révolution, ont réussi à accroître leur périmètre de manière exponentielle jusqu'au rail de tram, qui, depuis les tentatives de l'État de contrôler, repartent. Du coup, c'est ça qui est intéressant avec la fripe, c'est de voir toutes ces évolutions spatialisées, toute la concrétude en fait, de ce que ça implique en termes de rapport social quotidien. Et là, on a travaillé surtout avec un jeune homme, qui travaille pour son nom. On est rentré dans toute la dimension familiale du commerce de la fripe avec la tunisienne. Il vient d'une région qui est au nord-ouest de la Tunisie, une région qui a une histoire d'irrédentisme contre l'État tunisien qui remonte à plus de 2 siècles et qui, de ce fait, comme l'essentiel de cette région frontalière aujourd'hui, ne bénéficie d'aucun investissement public. C'est aussi un des épicentres de la révolution. Et aussi la région qui fournit le plus de fripiers à Tunis. Grâce à SAFE, on a pu avoir un aperçu de ces inégalités régionales, comment elles se reproduisent de génération en génération, comment se structurent les business de la fripe grâce à des liens familiaux, et aussi par le capital migratoire. Du coup, c'est ça qui est intéressant, c'est que je vous ai dit, les marchandises circulent, les hommes sont bloqués, mais même bloqués, les hommes migrent quand même, illégalement, et vous avez énormément de fripiers de marché, du coup, pas les gros grossistes. Parce que pour être grossiste, il faut avoir un sacré capital. Et donc, pour pouvoir s'installer comme fripier de marché, il faut avoir un petit capital. Le petit capital qui permet l'immigration clandestine. Donc, vous avez énormément de fripiers sur le marché de Mercadoune qui ont migré en France dans les années 80, ou en Italie, ou même en Italie, qui en ont profité pour connaître un peu la mode, se faire quelques contacts, vendre, voire à la sauvette des frites en Europe, qui, une fois expulsés, reviennent et s'installent comme fripiers de marché. On a aussi un autre grand principe de l'anthropologie économique pour rendre du capital migratoire dans le business, qui arrive. Et ce qui était très intéressant en fait, avec Mercadoune, en discutant avec ces jeunes fripiers, c'est que là on est vraiment au cœur de ok, on n'a pas d'argent, on n'a pas pu continuer nos études, souvent pour des questions d'aspect cassé, qui n'ont pas pu étudier, qui n'ont pas pu parce qu'il n'avait pas assez d'argent, qui doit supporter sa famille, du coup on rentre aussi dans la conduite familiale, en fait, il est l'aîné, du coup il doit aider ses parents, on est dans rapport de genre, on est dans rapport familial, et le rêve des jeunes fripiers, c'est de partir, nous on rêve de partir, et du coup à défaut de pouvoir partir, ils profitent de leur boulot au marché pour se mettre de côté quelques bonnes pièces et s'habiller d'Europe à défaut de pouvoir partir. C'est le cœur du travail qu'on a essayé de mener, c'était de creuser cette piste-là et de la mettre en relief, particulièrement au musée, dans une exposition qui a tout fait pour ne pas s'attaquer aux inégalités globales et nationales. Du coup, on a fait un peu de médecin en relief, et puis on a aussi, pour essayer de sombrer dans une des autres tendances de l'anthropologie, qui serait de survaloriser les pauvres, les beautiful. Les pauvres, c'est super, ils se battent, ils galèrent, ils arrivent toujours à s'en sortir. On a quand même essayé d'aller voir le côté un peu friqué du business. Et qui est quand même dans un quartier, dans une banlieue industrielle comme les autres. Hein. Mais ce qui est super dans le quartier des grossistes, qui s'appelle Heisobo, le quartier des fleurs, il n'y a pas une seule fleur, hein, c'est des anciens garagistes convertis dans la fripe. Il y a plutôt des bidons d'essence et des grosses balles de fripe partout. Mais il y a aussi un commissariat de police en plein milieu, et c'est un peu comme le douanier dans l'usine en fait. Les photographes, ça passe mal, mais finalement le fait que les 3/4 de la revente, que rien ne soit taxé, aucun des flux d'achat et de revente en gros de fric ne soit taxé, et que les contrebandiers viennent se fournir directement chez les grossistes, puis partent directement vers l'Algérie, ne pose aucun problème aux commissaires et aux commissariats de quartier. Ce qui pose un problème, c'est plutôt pourquoi est-ce que vous faites des photos et vous essayez de documenter ce truc. Ça existe, c'est très bien, mais surtout n'en parlons pas. Et là, on a beaucoup travaillé avec un semi-grossiste, Monawal, qui lui a migré clandestinement à Marseille, a économisé un capital relativement conséquent en 18 ans, vient d'une famille de fripiers à l'origine, vient de la même région que Saïd, le fripier sur le marché, et qui lui est seulement semi-grossiste. Donc c'est difficile de parler quand même au côté très très friqué de l'affaire. On a un gros grossiste parce que il nous a expliqué en fait, et c'est là aussi un autre aspect qui nous a tenu à cœur et qui est intéressant, toute la dimension socialisée, moralisée du business. On n'est pas du tout dans un système froid et rationnel de flux, on n'est pas dans l'homo economicus qui n'existe pas. Mais en gros, pour vendre en gros les prix, il faut, comme à peu près partout quand on fait du business, avoir une mentalité de joueur, donc avoir acheté tout à crédit et revendre tout à crédit. C'est-à-dire qu'il peut dépenser 8 000 euros en une semaine, et si ses clients ne le repaient pas, il est endetté envers les personnes avec les gros grossistes qui les achètent, et il doit acheter constamment pour se fidéliser les vendeurs, et il doit revendre constamment pour avoir lui-même une clientèle fidèle pour pouvoir tourner. Il est vraiment dans cette. Lui, il est né du développement de la spécialisation par catégorie, par flux, etc. du business, où il y a de plus en plus d'intermédiaires, de niches intermédiaires qui se créent. Et ce qui était intéressant avec Noël, pour moi, c'est tout le prix qu'il accorde à la parole donnée. Donc dans ce système de contrat, et donc n'importe quel système de business en général, le prix de la confiance et de la connaissance. Et sa conscience extrêmement aiguë des rapports de dépendance dans lesquels il est inscrit. Il a une citation que j'ai citée à plusieurs reprises, et peut-être que dans le reportage, je me souviens plus, il dit en fait, moi je suis attaché, littéralement, je suis voué aux Tunisiens, à la poche du Tunisien, parce que c'est l'argent des Tunisiens qui achète l'Afrique et donc qui fait vivre le détaillant fait vivre le commerçant et le petit commerçant qui m'achète lui-même des prix, et voilà, je suis complètement lié à la poche du Tunisien et aussi à la météo. Donc s'il investit trop dans un stock d'hiver, il commence à faire trop chaud, il peut avoir des petits problèmes de stock. Et Minawar est quelqu'un qui a décidé de revenir, enfin c'est expulsé de France, a décidé de revenir. Il a décidé de revenir en Tunisie pour se lancer dans le niveau de l'Afrique fort de ce qu'il avait appris sur le mode de consommation européen et fort de l'argent qu'il avait économisé également en France. Du coup, là, on est encore une fois sur cette espèce de production dans tous les sens, des zones de marchandises, etc. Et voilà, c'est un peu confus tout ça, mais je pense que les choses ont un petit peu ou non. J'ai un peu entendu, en fait, je vais commencer par dire que je parlais des légumes, du coup, les légumes à l'Afrique, je pourrais vous parler des cipicots qui vous légumes de Marseillais. Si vous avez des questions, allez-y. En fait, aussi, une dernière chose, c'est un champ relativement inexploré et vraiment à l'échelle de la Tunisie, pour clore, des fripiers, différents fripiers avec qui j'ai posé la question, estimaient qu'il y avait environ 1 million de personnes qui travaillaient en Afrique à différentes échelles en Tunisie, qui compte 10 millions d'habitants. C'est énorme. Et cette énormité est largement inexplorée. On a nous deux qui sommes les des terrains qui sont en train de tout à Tunis, mais la dimension, voilà, en fait finalement, tout ce qui touche au travail, à l'organisation du travail et au commerce à l'échelle tunisienne est très peu photographié. Et ça vaudrait la peine de donc c'est un appel à l'éducation pour les comparatistes de tout bord, mexicains, voilà,
So hi, so I'm Stephanos, but I work with Lucile, and so this was a project for Lucile, so like a kind of assignment, but not really, because they didn't really know what they wanted, so we actually were working for 2 years, but we didn't actually know what kind of finality we were going to have, so as you might understand, for someone who's a photographer, videographer, it's very difficult to work in when you don't know if it's really going to make an exhibition film. So I had my ideas, and in the end we made something which we're quite happy about. If you go to the exhibition, you will see it's like the only part of the exhibition which has the human in the center. So we really see the people that are working with second-hand clothes, and most of the rest of the exhibition is more about business, the things, and you don't really hear the stories of the people. So for us, this was really important, as Lucile said. So for me as well, it was a very new subject. So I've been working as well a lot on borders and immigration. So it's kind of it's become an obsession, this subject. borders. And so I managed actually to find this obsession even in the second-hand clothes in Tunisia. So Lucile talked about it a bit, but what I was really interested about when we did our work there was the imaginary. So the imaginary that is created by these second-hand clothes which are coming from Western countries, and people who are using this fashion to dream of as well the West, Europe, and most of these people, it's as you know, it's hard for them to get visas or to travel. So most actually of the people that we were working with had not been to Europe, and there's always this dream and this fantasy of Europe, which is great. And all the people who are coming back, they're coming with the clothes, and everything is great. So for me, it was like interesting to see how the second-hand clothes and how the people as well were dressing up. So like it's really, people are really being really creative with the clothes and really fashionable, even more than here sometimes. And they have actually really great crème and super crème, as Lucile was saying. What else was I going to say? So yeah, I mean, I'm not going to talk a lot because I'm not. It's not my job to talk, but I will show you more things, and I think Lucile said a lot of stuff. So I might start with showing you. I will show you different parts. So I mean, my work and our work was kind of in different kind of research, small, like trials basically, not trials, like we tried out different stuff. So the exhibition is a mixture of videos with photos, maps, sound, so video installation. So it's kind of like it is a multimedia, pluridisciplinary kind of immersive experience as well. So it's the idea is to get into the society, into the people who are working it, and into the clothes. So I will start by showing you maybe some photos, which these photos were we thought about. So okay, I'll show you like this. Okay. So I mean, we worked for 2 years. I was there, and in all, I was taking photos, and always there's these clothes, but which are either maybe put in a shop, because in Tunisia as well, in Tunis there's actually shops. I mean, it's quite impressive to see actually shops like the shops for new clothes with, the mannequins and all this. But in 2015, I started getting obsessed with clothes. So I was starting to sit and look, observing how people are wearing the second-hand clothes, and it's quite interesting because, you see like the Italian, like in a small Italian football club, on this old guy, he doesn't even know what it is. So there's all these mixtures. So I was thinking, we were thinking about how can we put this in scene? How can we, in image, understand, see what are these clothes? What are we talking about? What is second-hand clothes? Because you see all these piles of clothes, but you don't really get a feeling. So the best way was to dress up somebody, because clothes become alive on the body. When you see them piles, they don't really have any sense. So with this friend Amin, we used him as a manager. So we said, okay, do you want to dress up in different styles? So it's always the same person and different styles. So there was first I observed like, try to find the archetypes of the Tunisian style. So this is the bourgeois of La Marsa, of the northern suburbs, which are quite rich. So it's all second-hand clothes. So it was actually really hard when you have a specific idea in your head and you're actually looking for something. It takes you a lot of time, and it was actually quite expensive as well. I don't know if Lucile said, but actually in Tunis the second-hand clothes are really expensive. I mean, if you are looking for something specific, it can go up to 50 euros for shoes. Like something like, wow, it's not this idea we have here of like, it's just second hand, €1, and I just buy it. It's actually a real, like, going to a shop, you know? So we spend a bit of money, but we had some money from the museum, so we spent some of that. Some of the clothes I gave to Amin, others I still have, so it's quite cool. So this is the bourgeois.
So Stephan, these are his
Shit.
creations or your interpretation?
No, it's our interpretation, and it's a bit generalist as well, maybe a bit.
Is it a collaborative project?
With him, no.
It is his creation.
No, it's our creation.
Your interpretation.
Yeah.
Yes, he was really
So-
happy to be present.
He's just a model.
He's just a model.
Okay.
And a friend, and no, we observed, so I observed, I took like photos to see, okay, what is this? So we made these quite like generalist archetypes of the Tunisian style.
He was with you looking for the clothes?
No.
No, we have
No, just model.
He's just a model.
So he was very happy with this one, the bourgeois. Because as you will see, his face changes compared to what he's wearing. So, like the nice shoes, nice style. This is the public servant. So, policeman as well in civilian, very standard, or public servant. You know, so very quite classical type of everything. He liked this one as well. This is the like Zawali, so the guy who doesn't have a job and he's looking for a job. You know, so he's a bit. This is what he didn't like. It's like, no, I can't put this shoe, I will put the other shoes, you know, it was very hard to make him pose. So this is interesting, like the vest is like a small Italian football club that nobody knows, you know, and you see these old people who have this, and you're like, what? It's very, very absurd. This is the young Tunisian fashion, young. So the first one, there's different variations of the young guy. A bit, you know, like flirting, you know, bogos. So he has the boss vest, white trousers, Prada shoes. He was very happy with this one as well. This was a bit our own like creation, so it's like the eccentric. So we basically chose just like the most crazy, quite crazy stuff that you can find in the second-hand clothes. So like these, I don't know how you call the suspenders with like dogs on them, the shapka, green vest. So this was a bit our own like, okay, let's do something a bit crazy with all the stuff that we can find. And actually there is, because when we were, you know, we looked at the shapka, we're like, who's gonna buy this? You know, like, why do you have this? And actually there's also some theater companies in Tunis who actually are using very, very much the second-hand clothes for all the costumes. So the sellers actually keep, you know, some of this eccentric stuff for these people. But I actually did see some, you know, maybe a bit crazy people, you know, a bit like eccentric, and they were had just an incredible style. You're like, where did you think about this? So you can actually see people who just maybe find the cheapest stuff or something and just make some incredible style, you know. This I really like. This is the youngster, like Tunisian. So very important is the Italian vest. So this is important as what I was saying before, the imaginary, the West. So this Italia is like, I don't know where it came from, but everybody has this. All the youngsters. Huh? Yeah, volleyball, or they have the football or whatever. But Italia is it's like the symbol of Europe, you know. It's cool. Like Italia.
Yeah, Italy is very strong in volleyball.
Yeah. But I think yes, this is the young too. This is the worker, so a bit like Zawali, but he has a job, so he's like main d'oeuvre, he's working for cheap. I really like the vest is a Trattoria Mario, a bit worn out, so it's like Trattoria Mario, some restaurant somewhere in, I don't know, in Puglia, like nobody knows, and it's there, you know, so it's quite funny. This is the rapper, so in Tunis there's actually quite a good rap scene. And the same, so very American influenced, and the possibility to dress like that because there is a second-hand clothes. Otherwise, it's like really expensive. Most of this is mostly, I think, Canadian, American, very good brands. Like this hoodie might cost like 200 euros, you know, not new or something. So gives the possibility as well of to dress up in a specific style through the second-hand clothes and to element this imagination of the West. This is the carnival. So we actually found this costume. I think it's a wolf. And this one he really didn't like. And he got into a fight with one of his neighbors. He's like, oh, look at me, because he was really, really anxious to wear this in his neighborhood. And then that's the, you know, finality. So I mean, it's kind of like it's a typological study. So what's interesting is every time it's the same person and the same place, and what comes out is actually how the expression, how the personality changes just through the clothes. So this you can see at museum. And yeah, what's interesting as well is that, so, you know, we were talking about people who are blocked and clothes that move. And actually with Amin, it's quite a funny and quite a great story. So he was a friend in Marseille before, and he got expelled. He got, how was it? He was deported because he didn't have any papers. And when we did these photo shoots in Tunisia, he was stuck in Tunis. He couldn't come back, so he was a bit depressed, eating too much, you know. And then he managed to. He had a girlfriend. They got married, and so he moved. And for the opening of the exhibition, he was there for this. So he was a bit the star of the exhibition. And this was really great moment. So yeah, just a small parable. Now maybe we can see the portraits. So the portraits was a way to collaborate. Oh, it's not easy. So as an anthropologist, photographer, video, what do we do? You know, everybody does his own thing, or we actually work together. So these portraits was actually, I guess the closest collaboration, because Lucile was in charge of the interviews, so Arab speaking, and the interview process. I was doing the images, and then we came together after to edit these very small, actually 3-4 minute portraits, which has so the stories are very distilled. The interviews Lucile made was maybe an hour, 2 hours, and the final thing is 4 minutes. So it's really observation. We spend time. You understand what's important. You have a big interview, and then you really distill it to make this a museological, or it could be as well web format, which is really short. So this was our way of collaborating. So we have the three portraits. Lucile spoke about it before a bit. So there's the Iméra, who is sorting out the clothes in the factory, and Munawar, he's like a semi-grossist, so buying large quantities from wholesalers and then reselling them to shops. And Saif, who is our favorite, who is selling in the second-hand clothes stall in one market, mostly another market, working for his uncle. But they will talk for themselves. So I'll put them all together. It's about 12 minutes, all of them.
وضعيتنا في الدار كان لازمك تخدمي معناها باش تعاون داركم شوية وباش تعيش أكثر معناها. بحكم أنا كي بطلت في القراية مش طول خدمت فريب، أنا رحت خدمت في الكومباني فهمتي، من بعد احنا بحذانا معمل هو متاع فريب، مشيت أنا نلوج في المعمل لقيته هو متاع بالصدفة متاع فريب معناها. أنا صغيرة وقتها 15 سنة. في المعمل نهار ب 12,000 ب 13,000. جينا سلعة مختلطة من البلدان، من برشا بلدان وبرشا سلعة وبرشا ارتيكلوات، وانت كل ارتيكل تحطيه في بلاصتو. من بعد بشوي بشوي فهمت انا الارتيكل، معناها فهمت البنطلون، فهمت الروسينة، فهمت البولو، فهمت السويت، فهمت الارتيكلوات. مش الناس كل تفهم في الفرز، ومش الناس كل، خاطر النساء توسع بالها اكثر في الفرز. الراجل ديما على اعصابه ديما. احنا البنات في تونس تقبل الخدمه برشا والفلوس شوي، الاولاد ما يحبوش هكاك، يحبوا الفلوس برشا والخدمه شوي. ما تعجبنيش برشا، اما يلزمك تخدمي خاطر ما عندكش شانس في خدمه اخرى. انا ديما نقول، انا كي نخدم في الفريق مثلا نقول زعما السلعه هذيا من فرنسا، زعما انا نجي نهار نمشي لفرنسا ونشوفهم عندهم نعمل فريق كيفنا احنا في تونس ولا لا. زعما كي نمشي انا لفرنسا ونحاول نشتغل في نعمل فريق زعما كيف ولا لا، ولا فهمتي؟ الله اعلم. معناها ديما بالحق مخك يهزك البعيد يهزك. ديما تقولي زعما يجي نهار نسافر، اما ديما ترجعي فيسا على خاطر ديما تحطي مشكله، ديما فلوس، ديما فهمتي بحكم الوضعيه بيصيف عليك ترجعي الواقع فيسا.
مشيت كيف أيها الشباب التونسي الكل، الشباب العربي الكل، مشينا للجنة، مشينا للفلوس، وقت توصل غاية تصدم بالواقع. أنا مشيت لفرنسا، بقيت غادي 8 سنين. بديها باش بدها سبورادي. تعملها هكا، اعمل خليها هكا. هاتها جا سبورادي، هاتها جا. روحت في الثورة لا فان 2010. بديت في الزهرين 29 مليون سيريين، حكايه فارغه بارابور مش تنجم تخدم بيان توصل لجروسيست هنا يتوفر المارشانديز بور الكليون، معناها خاصه الواحد بيدي جديد وما نفهم شيء.
اسمعني يا خويا
غدوه
اسمعني عاد بدي سامعني
نحكوا علاش انت تخصصت في الكلام. انا لما حالي نخدم كلش دوزيام بريمير كريم سوبر كريم خذيته، مي بشويه تحسرت كليوناتي، مش انا نحب معناها الكليونات كانوا معناها بشويه مثلا تعمل باغ اكزومبل تجي مثلا 10 كليونات يحبوا الكريم وزوز يحبوا بريمير، وبليجي تاخذ كريم بليس بريمير. توا تشوف فنجان ما عندوش حتى دينار في مكتوب، تهزه وتحطه تلقيه لابس 100 يورو، يقول لك انا معناها ما عنديش فلوس، نزيد نهنت روحي في الشارع ومو نلبس ودبر راسي. افونا اظن عليها واحد لابس عليه يلبس بيا، واحد متوسط يلبس متوسط، واحد زوال يلبس زوال. توا الناس الكل تحب لبس نظيف. تعرفش علاش انا تعلمت بسرعه؟ انا ما نخافش. الحاجه الميزه ما نقولكش انا فور، لا باش ما نقولش اينشتاين، لا انا ربي مكتب لي هكا. نو ليه انا ما نخافش. انا بار اكزومبل يجيني باترون ويقول لي نعطيك مثلا ب 300 مليون سلعه، ما جو دي جو بو با ما نجمش نخلص ولا نخاف ولا حاجه. نو انا مجشع. حبيتها. أنا جد معناه نعشق التجارة، فهمتني؟ نعشق نتكلم. أنا معناها أبار لي سوم، أنا حتى نحي الفلوس هكوتينا، ميم حتى كي تتم معاملات. أهلنا مثل عربي يقول كون ثقة وشارك العباد في فلوسها. أنا انطبقت علي المقولة هذه. أمون حبيبي ما تغشش علي، والله عندي زوج كليونات نحضر لهم في السلعة نتاعهم، والله نص صباح والله نتو شارع. دوب ما نكمل نكلم صاحبي. مريقة لاي
الفريب ماهوش اختيار، معناها يلزمك معناها الاختيار الوحيد انك تخدم الفريب، ثماش حاجه اخرى تخدمها كالفريب. كان يلزم نبطل القرايه معناها باش نعاون بابا نعاون خواتي في الفاك هكاك باش هما يكملوا الدراسه نتاعهم. كي يجي تديون ياخذ من عندك الفريب انت تحس اللي انت معناها كنت تنجم انت في بلاصتو. كان كملت نقرا انا نشوف الصوره نتاعي عندهم هما، فهمت كيفاه؟ أنا نخدم مع خالي كيما مثلا كي يبدا ثما كي نربحوا من كونتيتي معينه معناها فلوس يعطيني جزء هو منها، معناها يعطيني كميه ماهيش كميه معناها ماهيش نص اما اقل. معناها ساعات نربحوا برشا فلوس وساعات معناها نبداو نخدموا شهر كامل معناها ما فيهوش ربح، ما نربحوش الجمله معناها الطعب هذاك تاع الشهر كامل بلاش، معناها نطلع من بعد خاسرين فيه. كل مره كيفاه الفريق لا محبه ولا جواري لا قربات رياله نور والدولار واحد النور غشاش شافوا لي زوال خطوتهم رجله. معناها كي تصير مشكله حتى مع البلديه كيفاه معناها يحبوا ينقلونا كلها تتضامن مع بعضها هكاك. جماعه الفريق كلها بعد تحس اللي انت معناها موجود في فاميليا واحده كلها تعرف بعضها كلها يد واحده. والفليب هو كيفاه هو معناها الموضه في الفليب متقدمه على اللي في الجديد، معناها اي حاجه تعبت موضه في الغرب تجي في الفليب الاول. الشعب التونسي الكل يحب يلبس من الفليب، ماهوش ما نجمش يعيش من غير الفليب في تونس. نشوف تطورات معناها في القارات الاخرى معناها كما اوروبا وامريكا، احنا نواكبوا في الثقافه نواكبوا في الموضه نواكبوا في كل شيء معناها يخص الغرب. نحبوا نعيشوا كما الغرب، اي شاب يحب ديما يخرج يحب يسافر يحب يتعرف على بنيه يعيش معاها في الغرب هكاك. انا يلزمك تحب ولا تنكر تعيش في تونس تخدم ولا بتخدمش بطال معناها لازمك تكمل تعيش في تونس هيك.
والحمد كتبه منخير اللي قاعد في بيته التيت بكثير دايما علق كثير الحمام كثير ما علاش كثير قصصنا كثير والغربان كثير وفي بلاد الكل.
So that was the portraits. And then, so as you see, the voice is voiceover. It's not direct. So this was a way of collaborating. So with having much more freedom in the interviews and what people say. And I mean, our aim as well was to kind of have this feel of the thought of the people, also getting to the intimacy, a bit the dreams. So this was our way to edit these multimedia pieces this way. Then another thing I tried out. I mean, so inspired by this idea of the dreams and sorting the clothes, dreaming of other places. So I tried to film the places where there's the second hand clothes, so the sorting factories or the markets. To find this kind of dreamy ambience in the jests as well, which are repetitive and have this feeling of the mind drifting away. And actually, you might have seen it in the last portrait of Safe. It's very red, so actually the market has very specific, particular ambience with the red pants. So it's giving a very specific tint. And so now I will show you an edit. We didn't actually manage to show it this way in the museum because it's a split screen. And actually they wanted something else, but I preferred to show you this, which is like quite experimental. So it's the beginning of something which could be more interesting. So it's a kind of variation of what you just saw, but in a different kind of way, more into the dream-like ambience. And
also this style of the kind of story of trying to link this imaginary and the stories of people with the business. In this first slide, we tried to articulate this. And then
so this is really short, 3 minutes.
نتخيل خاطر هما معناها مش كيف احنا في تونس التواصل عليه عن اللي جايتنا من عندهم هم. فما بالنسبه لنا احنا ما نطيشوش معناها ما نحطوش سلعه كما هكا كيفهم هما.
أنا دخلت الفريق عمري 14 سنة، يعني خدمت 8 سنين ومن بعد خرجت لأوروبا. بعد ما هبطت من فرنسا معناها العامين الأولى ما حبيتهاش الحقيقة، لوجت على حاجة أخرى، معناها كيف ما نقولوها الفريق هو اللي اختارني أنا، فهمتني؟
يا لا لا عيونك سود وجلابات يا لا لا يا لا لا عيونك سود وجلابات يا لا لا يا لا لا كيفاش الفريق نختار الالوان الباهيه كل الالوان الحاره هذيك نختار الاصفر والازرق
حاجة تفضل اللي
ونبدا نخدمها كيلي نعود ننسج ونغني هكا نعود ننسج
Yeah. So, I mean, as I said, it was just like, something which we could work a bit more, and so as you might have understood, there was kind of the sequence of the clothes which are being sorted, then they go to the market, and actually the last part which finally was not included in the exhibition is some women we went to see in the south of Tunisia, who are actually going to the market, selecting second-hand clothes and then cutting them to make these special carpets, which actually they were traditionally making as for the marriage. So as the doll, you would have these carpets, and so we met a woman who they're starting like a small business to sell outside and all that. So it was a way to show the sequence. I think that's all. So,
Yes, thank you very much. That was very nice, and you will see. I'll just sure. Yes, yes. I was wondering about the first sequence of men dressing up in dress styles you have identified as somewhat representing a little bit of what you look around. So I was wondering if you perhaps consider just shooting photographs of people at random dressed up in a manner that struck your attention. Why did you go for a model?
because I mean, as I was saying, when we see this all together, it's like our interest is just the clothes. It's even more evident that if you have different people, it's like you're taking portraits as well. So now this almost, in this way of working, the model disappears because it's always the same. So at
Yes,
some
but
point,
I mean, it's you who made the selection,
Yeah.
rather than sort of snapping what you see out there, which would perhaps be a little bit more authentic.
yeah, maybe. I mean, I think it's, I'm working in documentary, but I'm not,
Yes.
I don't have problems.
Yes.
I think
No, I just wanted to ask.
fiction can be more real than documentary, actually, in my work. So this is I believe this is the way it works. I was free, and for me, it's working better this way than actually what you say. But
You didn't consider doing a similar sequence with women, with a woman model?
yeah, it would be great. Maybe we'll do it next year. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
But we didn't. This was like we actually missed our plane because of this.
Oh dear.
These sequences.
Yes.
Because it was the morning before we had to to redo the shoots because the lighting wasn't good. So this is not a very finished work.
Right. It's ongoing.
We'll see.
All right. Thank you.
May I add something to that?
Yeah.
Every picture is linked to a specific name to its slides, which are really cool identical.
Oh.
So Zawali also, like the second slide also,
Yeah.
Zawali is the poor guy, but also like the poor guy after the revolution is capturing the Zawali. And in the rap song, the premiere for Six, this guy says, yeah, I'm Zawali, but I will go there, like, we will go to work, I will go there, I will make plenty of dollars, and I will come back and I will be like, I will be in place.
Yeah.
And so being Zawali is like, it's a stigma, but it's also like, it's a very clear identity.
It's an interpretation. It's an interpretation and it's an exaggeration.
Or choose of style performance.
Tell us a bit more about the thinking behind choosing these particular.
Which ones?
The ones from collage.
The beginning.
Yes.
Oh, the styles you mean?
Yes.
I mean,
why these particular styles? What was your thinking behind putting together these? Give us a bit of background there.
well, I mean, as I said, so there was observation. I mean, sitting somewhere looking at the photos. So there's that kind of. Then there is, a work which was like, okay, so what kind of style how could be distinguished? I mean, as you saw, there's variations, no? So like the young man 1, 2, but I mean, it's not a real, it's not a research. It's just, it's like giving an impression. It's not exhaustive. That's what I mean. There's other work like this. There's actually a long-going project which is really interesting between a photographer and a stylist. They actually go all around the world and they do, it's actually the opposite thing. So it's like the Grammys in England. And they have like 30 photos of Grammys in England. So they have all the same, this blue thing. And so it's a kind of a different way of working.
And also because we wanted to take many ways, like different ways of linking all the stories in the stories. And what the second project enabled us to see that to understand that the society and questions what we were asked to do, how can we link all this? And something to link say all the time is like l'Afrique habite tous les Tunisiens et toutes les inégalités. And there is a guy who told me, on s'habille en fripe, on travaille la fripe, on mange l'argent de la fripe, mais il y a des différences. Et il y a les barons, les entrepreneurs, et nous. Nous, on est tout en bas, nous, on est ceux qui galèrent, on est ceux qui en bas. Et du coup, there is always talking about social inequality, which is really strong in Tunisia. Maybe stronger after the revolution, I've not been there for but it's also like very clear for people and they can identify with different styles, not only this one, but sometimes they say like green as well. It's mostly the picture of female and so that's also we document just different styles and pictures of people and then we took an into and video. There is a you need to say this one. And also I'm just like shitty stuff like point and you say so it's different. It's difficult for me like to say it's very trendy. So the idea was like technology said like close all kind of all Tunisians, all social inequalities and we can sense them. That's why it's called la vie phénoménale. I don't know if you know this expression in French. La vie phénoménale means the dress makes the monk. Here, the way you dress actually
In Greek is exactly the opposite.
No, in French is the opposite, and we put it like the unit.
In French, it's la vie ne fait pas le mal. C'est la vie fait le mal. So I think in French too.
The functions to make the dress as soon as you get to when you have the.
I'm doing a research and they're recommending or a social researcher.
One question about men clothes in Morocco, for example, on the markets. There are a lot of men clothes, very important market on people's clothes. In comparison with Mexico. Because in Mexico, lino or second-hand clothes, or lino, that's the real. Well, in Morocco, what about
Yeah, I think I would say it's half and half. There are a lot less traditional clothes in Morocco.
but maybe
For
even
women.
if
because I think it's half and half.
Because in Mexico
It's half and half, I think also because maybe you just had some instance, like looking at the buckets and the silk buckets especially, but second-hand clothes is also a way to claim some counter-cultural styles and stuff. So you know also the first stuff we used to animal dressing, like the hip-hop singer. On a many accents, this way. Also, ça peut dire, oui, une fois que vous achetez, like in countries, it's really the comfort, like compared to all this type of work, we come to the travel, we can't consume and we go back to consume. We can just like have a glimpse of that, but at least we can dress and we can listen to the music. So it's not very pretentious, but it's just a way to say, okay, that comes to culture. And the culture is a way to revolution. I would not go that far, just so maybe that's why you have plenty of styles which are different, so for men as female. I would say it's quite half and half, but more consider as history, considering that there are
Underwear?
and underwear.
I mean, the biggest profit is from the underwear.
It's the
And this is
bras.
actually working a lot.
And it's totally
Bras.
forbidden. It's totally forbidden. It's like shoes. Shoes and bras are forbidden to be like second-hand bras and shoes are forbidden to sell in Tunisia. But because it's forbidden, it's just what you can, the most profitable stuff ever. And you can see bras everywhere. So come in the picture in the market, like in downtown Tunis, you can see it, the biggest second-hand market. There's some guys selling only bras, like, and you can feel like jellyfish or octopus is like just bras, like. So it's forbidden, it's everywhere.
Yeah, I had a question to follow up, and I had meant to do actually a presentation, but I went out there. Tunisia is a Muslim country, very dominantly. In the importation, we order from the people abroad on the import. Is there any consideration of the fact that a good deal of the population in Tunisia is Morocco? That is there a kind of pre-selection of types of garments that come in? Like things like in Morocco, a lot of men suits and work clothes maybe? No, not anymore. Yeah.
Not at all, like,
Yes.
everything, but it's more in the certain factories.
Right.
But also Tunisia and Morocco are really different. There's Muslim countries that are really different from the other countries.
Oh, sure, they sort in Tunisia.
And they sort with. So that's something, but don't source specifically in Tunisia. That's true. That you have everything, you have some very, very sexy stuff of women, and you get all the styles from men, not only specific kind of stuff.
I mean, in the video, the first video, we see the people, the women sorting, and the actual bags, so it's like big garbage bags, are the bags we put into the charity box.
Right, yes, I saw that from Germany.
So I mean, it's direct. It's just from the house. There's no. So they get these big containers just full. Actually, sometimes they do find
they sort locally.
yeah, they do find like money in the pockets or phone, or keys, or like they have in the certain family there is this box with all the crazy stuff they found.
Yeah.
So no, there's no sorting whatsoever.
told me that he found a huge 1 kilo gold medal of the Holy Virgin in the bag.
It seems we've been discussing yesterday as well when I was thinking about Michel Ferrandi, a way of describing this new circuit of goods in Morocco and Spain, seems in the same direction. You are speaking as well about this kind of trade based on contraband, and I found that there is kind of system in West Africa in Europe, in Nigeria, and it's illegal to import to Nigeria, but we ended there. But for myself, the idea of being able to work in those kind of market with a photographer or with a camera seems very difficult. And I have a question a bit more about the methodology, how you manage to do that, to introduce
I mean, the base was like, so it was for the museum, so we managed to get authorization from the Ministry of Culture, quite easily. But even with that, we had problems. I mean,
you had to paper with the staff?
I mean, we had problems only with the police. So
And with the customs.
and the customs, so in the factory, in the sorting factory, we see him at one point. He was like the whole game with him. He was like, because in these factories, so the factory is private, and in the factory there is a custom agent who is connected to the government. And he's corrupt to like the bone and even more than the bone.
Everything.
So every time we would go, he was like, photography, no, we need things. So we actually had to go to the Ministry of Interior or
We
of
have to go
Defense.
to the customs center of the video quality, and so which is next to
And
defense.
get another authorization. So I mean, Ministry of Culture, no, you need Ministry of this.
You just showed that through paper, you didn't investigate something.
Yeah, one funny anecdote is just like once he got arrested by the police in the like whole salon neighborhood, and I talked to the policeman and I told him, but what do you want more? Like, we have this authorization from the Ministry of Culture. He laughed and he told me, but you know, maybe there was this revolution, but we are still running the question. You need to go to the Ministry of the Interior if you want to have an authorization. Because we are regular, and that was interesting as well. Yeah, lots of talk about revolution, but then that's true, the police is still in charge. And so, but what was interesting is also like just formal, like Stephanos got arrested with his camera, we just had to show our IDs and register and say, yes, sorry, cool, and then we went to see.
There's nothing really secret about it's like very visible all this. Then in the market it's more, relationship with the people, so you're sometimes filming lots of people, so spend time and we always with one person, so when you're in the market it's safe most of the time, or people knows, and then you get, it's just the standard, methodology. You spend time, people get used to you speak a bit here, a bit there, and they get to know you. And
What we had sometimes trouble and people were sometimes for people in the market that we parallel like pictures, but I think what was important in order to register is like have the images not in the working place, but in the room. I think a bit like English people that were parallel with the work society, it's more than the picture. It's good. Like, yeah, if you know the right people, but one of the projects was for Stephanos to jump to the truck and cross the border and carry up the act of the whole and the woman. Even more dangerous to be we didn't expect to be a woman. That's what one needs the guy. And then said that. But you can still work.
When you tell me those things, what was the beginning? You guys were saying, well, I'm doing this quick job of sort of because I have another choices. Is there some kind of mobility for the people? You can start selling services in market and then have somebody who start to import one day and do themselves, or do they get stuck at the same place?
It used to be this way, but it's getting more difficult. It's getting more higher level, so there's more influences, and inflation is raising also because even in Europe it's so profitable that so that all this, I'm sure you talk about the charity philanthropic companies that discovered, wow, that you might also work in a decentralized way, so profitable, but also, so there are more and more people in some business.
that's it.
That's the pressure on the small sellers, and so yeah.
They have also like the wholesaler talks about that. He's been to Europe, so he comes with a capital, and then he's working really well.
That is more
And we went to see him 2 years, and he bought another place, what's called like a place to this fric, and I mean it's working really well. It's like it's working, but I mean he's good at it. He's taking risks, but I mean for a young Tunisian who's working like safe and just getting with the money, I think it's very hard to have the right capital to start off. Once you start off, then it can work. But
if you're not from a rich family, you need to like
very hard.
marriage to get to maybe it's more which make now say that okay, maybe c'est quand même business is going to collapse, but he's looking for other opportunities. If it collapses, he will find another problem. That's how it works.
Okay. Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much. Well, we finish like that. So we can take a lunch on stage. Well, thank you very much. To share our experience about well,